quorum here, so we'll get going on time. Good night to everybody on the platform. I'm Vanus James, and I will moderate. I have the privilege of moderating the work of an excellent man like Patrick Watson, or premier statistician in the region. Let me invite everybody to mute their mics until you're ready to enter the conversation. Just a word of welcome to Patrick. This is Tobago's long-running platform, and on this platform we discuss Tobago and national development issues, and we discuss appropriate policy and things like that. And we're extremely happy that you've made the time to come and share your thoughts on this extremely important matter of Trinidad and Tobago's policy towards Venezuela and the US. I think you subtitled the talk, "The Real Cost of TNT's Missteps." We're looking forward to hearing what you think. What we normally do, Patrick, is we proceed by giving you the time you want to speak. Let's say up to, say, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, up to that anyway. And
that's plenty time, eh? That's plenty time, eh?
That's plenty time, yeah.
Yes,
but whatever time is left after you're finished talking, we'll do a rich interactive discourse in which you get to respond to questions and comments from the platform. And usually at the end, we have a couple of people who would want to know the way forward. So I'll moderate to give as many persons as possible a chance to participate actively with the comments and with questions. I think it's out of just deep respect for you as a professional, Patrick. It is worth saying that you are well known, perhaps, all over the country as one of our finest scholars, at least one of the finest we've ever produced. And I think you are still our premier statistician and econometrician. And we all know that you've been deeply involved in the political economy of the country over many years, with strong and clear opinions, well thought through. A friend told me today that when you come on the platform, you usually come only because you've thought out things carefully. So we look forward to hearing what you have to say on this topic. So over to you, Patrick. Okay, Sam Dowlett, please mute your mic. We're going to hear interference from you.
All right, Vanus, if you ever stop seeing my presentation, you tell me, eh? And thanks very much, Vanus, for that very flattering introduction. I'm going to go through it. The title is a title that I am using just as the French say, as an indication of what I'm going to do. And I really want to deal with this current crisis generally, in particular, as it affects Trinidad and Tobago. I am hoping to spend no more than 25 minutes. I have timed myself in that way because I want to give this a lot of time. So what are we doing here? I'm going to separate this into parts. There's a background first of all. I am saying, well, Hugo Chavez, as we know, was elected into office in 1998. He served as president from 1999 till he died in office in 2013. He was succeeded by Nicolas Maduro, who is still in office up to today. And the main point I want to make at this juncture, and it's a point that I'm going to be developing throughout, is that the US government has never made a secret of its dislike for the Chavez-Maduro administration. And there is evidence up to today that it has taken action, and sometimes I mean negative action, and I consider what is going on now negative action against the regime to achieve regime change. And I will put my cards on the table. I think this is part of activity on regime change. I don't know what their long-term plan is. I don't know if there is an immediate plan to invade. That may not be so, but they're certainly doing a lot to stir up the nest as far as I could see. I'm going to give some indications as to this support regime change. And this is only a little smattering. This is nothing extensive so there has been support for alternative leaders like John Guaido, who was a poster boy, certainly under the past administration, and that has since changed. But he was the one that came, in my view, closest to causing the most amount of distraction to the regime. There is some evidence, and I say some because I think there was a lot of evidence, that there was a U.S. backing of a coup against the Chavez administration in 2002, and there has been always. The biggest thing, in fact, that the U.S. has done is the sanctions. They have sanctioned the government, the government of Venezuela. They have sanctioned individuals. They have as came out as Rubio said today, they have an arrest warrant in the U.S. for Maduro. If he should ever land on U.S. soil, they could arrest him. And they have been imposing these sanctions a little bit all over the place. They are very, very deleterious. The U.S., when it imposes sanctions because of its power and because of the way it could deal with you, as it has imposed on Cuba, it's not a nice thing. And the U.S., it's one of the biggest weapons that the U.S. uses all over the world, is to impose sanctions on both individuals and on countries and on people and states dealing with these countries. In more recent times, the government has placed, I know there was a bounty before, but the bounty is now $50 million, that's US dollars, on the head of Maduro, which is a lot of incentive for people to squeal on him and get him out. Now, the sanctions, and I will repeat this, they have had a crippling effect on the economy. I am not sure to what extent it's responsible for a large amount of the problem. Let me say something then, and I don't want this thing to come up in any way. I am in no way a Maduro supporter, not in the least, and I don't know to what extent what he has done or what he has been doing is responsible for some of these problems. What I do know, and this is a philosophical point I want to make, is that if he has to be dealt with, he must be dealt with by the people of Venezuela and by nobody else. That's a point I want to make clear up front. And I'm sure I will shed no tears for him if and when the people of Venezuela deal with him as they see fit. But in the meanwhile, what is happening is there's a lot of migration, as we know. I live in an area where I see the results of that migration. I am learning to speak Spanish just by listening to it on the street all day, and so on. So Venezuela has been trying to develop and has been looking toward BRICS with some success. But the U.S. has not been allowing the organizations to visit, like Iran, Russia, China, and so on. So Venezuela is in a sorry state from all reports, and that can be largely linked to the sanctions, which is not a surprise thing. In recent times, I don't know why some people are trying to say it is because the Trump administration is facing problems at home with the use of ICE and the demonstrations against its policies, and abroad in Ukraine in particular, in Palestine in particular as well. And they have been trying to, it could be that they're trying to distract by coming into this region. But what the reality is, whatever the reason, the attempts against the Venezuelan regime have intensified in recent times, culminating in the presence today of a U.S. armada, there's nothing else you can call it, in the region. And this includes, I will give some details about it just now, including nuclear armed assets, ostensibly to combat narco trafficking, according to the Trump administration. Now, all the experts will tell you that you don't go about dealing with drugs like this. There's something else in the mortar than the pestle here. So what is the worrying thing for me is the position of our own government towards the US. And I am extremely concerned about the unconditional, over-enthusiastic support coming for this, for the American activity in the region in recent times. I think that the behavior is what I would associate with comprador administrations, people who are, in fact, what I have written here is that they have supported these moves against Venezuela, including parroting the US position that this Armada is about fighting the drug scourge and that we will benefit from the fight against the drug administration. Now, don't get this wrong. People think because I'm opposed to what Trump is saying and what the Trump administration is saying, that I have a problem with fighting drugs. That's foolish. That is not true. And those are red herrings that people keep throwing at, at those who oppose the open and unconditional support for the presence of the US in our area. The TT government has, without question, accepted this stated motive, which it repeats ad nauseam. Many people repeat it ad nauseam as a reason, notwithstanding the history of anti-Maduro activity by the US, anti-Chavez Maduro, since 1999 when Chavez came into office, and similar pretexts like weapons of mass destruction, which have been used by the US to effect regime change elsewhere. It's almost as if they don't understand the beast that is the US. And that is probably true. There are a lot of people who have a view of the US. They look at it as a gold standard for democracy, for this and for that and the other. And they ignore Libya, they ignore Iraq, they ignore what Trump recently did in Iraq when Israel turned its guns on Iraq. They ignore Afghanistan, they ignore Vietnam, they ignore Korea, they ignore Cuba, and let me say something, they ignore Guyana. I'm going to stick a little piece of information here. When Charlie Jagan was elected into office, the US actively participated in the overthrow of the Jagan administration, and at the same time recognized Venezuela's claim to the Essequibo region, which it appears not to be supported. So it depends on who is sitting in Caracas that the US will support. So I'm going to say a little bit more on that in a short while. But in a nutshell, I want to say the US is famous for effecting regime change in the region. I forgot Chile, all right, in 1973, which was a bloodbath as well. The US is not a virgin when it comes to this kind of activity. Why should somebody feel that the presence of an armada in this region is any different to anything else, like weapons of mass destruction and the destruction, the blasting of Libya back into the Stone Age? I don't know why they should think it's any different. Of course, the Venezuelan government has denied all these accusations of being a narco state and of the leaders of the country being narco, and they have accused the US of open and naked aggression against Venezuela. Now, so that I want to now turn to some of the recent events, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on. Let me just make sure I didn't leave out anything. Yes, because I want to, some of these things, these are just talking points. So what are we now facing? All right, we are now seeing that in the region, the US has commissioned a full-fledged armada comprising of at least, because we don't know, they keep, we don't know if that's their secrets and so on, but they have admitted to 7 warships, 1 nuclear-powered fast attack submarine. That, I mean, I can't see what is this about? Where you're going with that? If it's narco trafficking, you're interested in? Do you intend to nuke the narco traffickers? I don't know. 4,500 troops as sailors and marines, and there are probably other offensive military assets present on it, but we don't know. Reuters has reported some of these facts, and they have indicated that this naval buildup exceeds the usual deployments in the Caribbean. This is unusual for the Caribbean. In my own lifetime, the only thing I could remember that may resemble this is the Cuban Missile Crisis. I was a child then, so I only have that vague memory of it. And Sparrow sang about it, and so you know what it is about. But that kind of deployment in the Caribbean Sea, I am unfamiliar. I am unfamiliar with that except, and it is truly frightening. It's frightening for all kinds of reasons, because if Trump is using this as a way of trying to regain face, I want to remind people, when Reagan sent troops to Grenada, it was immediately following a serious attack on an American garrison. I think it was in Lebanon. And it was to save face, to a large extent, that he turned his attention to what was going on in Grenada and invaded Grenada, which many of us applauded. And to our eternal glory, we did not take part in that. And I think that this is a completely different situation, which is worrying me, because I am not accustomed to being part of an American system like that. So, looking at the thing, the experts, and I am not an expert in the area, they have suggested that this buildup and this firepower is not just to fight drugs, if it is to fight drugs at all, but to effect regime change in Caracas, and at least to show some force, even if it goes back, because it could cause a lot of shaking knees and so on, and those who are against the regime may feel emboldened to rise up. I have no control over that. Now, the TT government has ostensibly, without being asked, I am not sure if they were asked, but I just heard our Prime Minister pledge the use of Trinidad and Tobago territory to US forces in the event that Venezuela attacks Guyana. Now, this is a very worrisome thing for several reasons. Everybody knows that about the ongoing tensions between Venezuela and Guyana. That is something that dates back to the 19th century, when the British, as they did in Guatemala, the British the British by then, at that time, was the mighty empire. They didn't tangle too easily with the British Empire. They took a large chunk of Venezuelan territory and put it onto what was then British Guyana. It remains largely a savage territory, but every Venezuelan child knows, and I want people to understand this, those who feel that by removing Maduro, you will remove the claim that Venezuela has on the Essequibo region, they're totally wrong. It's in the DNA of the Venezuelan people that part of the world belongs to them, and they are not going to give that up. It is true that the presence of the oil and so may have reignited their enthusiasm for it, but they have never. You look at any map of Venezuela that is shown to any child, and that is long before Chavez and Maduro, the Essequibo region belongs to Venezuela, according to Venezuela. This is nothing that I am inventing. This is something that I'm telling you. Any regime change, even people like Guaido, will never have agreed that that part of the world should go to anybody else but to Venezuela. So there are these tensions, but there is absolutely no evidence that this is being used by the US for launching the Armada in the region. The US has certainly made no reference to it, but has limited its stated concern to combating the drug trade. They keep repeating that, which that's their cause. In fact, the event that took place a few days ago, we are not sure if it really is an event, but let's imagine that it did take place. We're going to have to put that in our heads. that had to do with the transporting of drugs ostensibly en route to the US via Trinidad and probably other countries. But the US has made no reference to anything but to the drug trade. My own view, and I'm sure other people share my view on this, that this reference to Guyana is a smokescreen used by the Trinidad and Tobago government to justify its declared enthusiasm for what the US is doing and to win support at home and abroad for this enthusiasm. In fact, many people talk about Guyana more than anything, although at this point in time, Venezuela's concerns are way beyond what is going on in the Essequibo in the Essequibo region, because they have an armada in front of them. So this is what we have and over the last few days, the Trump administration has reported the destruction of a boat. We have all seen it. I'm sure there's nobody in this room who hasn't seen that clip, reporting the destruction of a boat with 11 occupants. More and more, there seems to be some truth in this story, although at first the Venezuelans they denied it and said it was AI generated, but that's beside the point. In fact, it is worse in my view if this event actually took place. The Trump administration reported the destruction of a boat with 11 occupants on board. There were no survivors, and there was they accused those involved in transporting drugs. The boat, if it existed at all, was destroyed along with all its crew and the total drug cargo. No attempt at all was made to intercept the vessel and arrest the occupants, which is what, in my view, ought to have happened for people obeying the rule of law and so on. And yet, our government has responded to the news of this alleged destruction of an alleged drug boat with an outpouring of enthusiasm, with using words that are shocking. And the Prime Minister in particular said that the US should kill them all violently. I mean, the Prime Minister has since been rebuked and continues to be rebuked at home and abroad for the use of such intemperate, unstatesmanlike language, especially, and this is an important point, there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever about the guilt of the occupants of the boat. There is without a shred of evidence, they were blown out of the water. Now, I don't know what they may have picked up or what they do, but they have not shared that with us convincingly. But they had the option of intercepting them because they have the power, the power, but has been blown away. Everything has gone, and of course, as you know, dead men tell no tales. There are no drugs to be found because they've all disappeared into their atoms and neutrons and so on. And all the occupants of the boat are dead. So we don't know who they are or what they are, if indeed they were somebody. I want to mention this point because it came up in the news again today, that this is just a warning to all of us who are hailing this as some kind of great thing. You remember the former Filipino strongman Duterte. He is now before the International Criminal Court for ordering the summary execution of alleged drug traffickers. This is not to say that people must love drug traffickers. It's not true, but there is due process to be followed and so on. You don't pick up yourself and you start executing this is madness. And we, as a civilized country, should not be supporting this kind of thing. This does not in any way imply love for drug traffickers. I have no doubt that it should be dealt with in the severest of ways. But I should mention that I should have pointed out that let me just mention that the Express had a nice expression where they call the outburst of Prime Minister Prasad Visesa as needlessly bellicose, a needlessly bellicose response from Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Visesa to the military strike on Tuesday by the United States against the alleged, they use the word alleged, Venezuelan vessel transporting drugs, in which 11 people were reportedly killed. All the evidence has been destroyed, including the occupants of the boat, and as you know, dead men tell no tales. I mentioned this thing about Duterte just now, and to the extent that people take it upon themselves to execute people who they think are guilty, and we don't even know who these people are. I saw a little clip coming from a village trying to identify these people, and they look like some little struggling people. I don't know. I don't know who they are. Given what is happening to Duterte, we are allowed to speculate about what fate awaits President Trump and his accomplices in this matter. Of course, I suspect nothing will happen at all. I want to point out that, and I think this point should be made, in the initial stages, and from what I can understand, the Venezuelan authorities continue to say that this vessel does not exist. The vessel does not exist, and it is a creation of the US authorities using artificial intelligence to recreate or create the fake event. I saw an expert on television tonight saying that there seems to be some intervention of artificial intelligence some use of artificial intelligence in the use of that footage, that it may have been passed through some artificial intelligence software, and he cannot tell whether this thing is purely completely created by artificial intelligence, or if there is some truth about it. Bear in mind, for those of you who grew up in the 60s and so on, you will know of Gulf of Tonkin. You know about these kinds of, I don't know, the young people who listen, I think you should go and Google these things to see how the US is famous for creating events, including events that may involve the destruction of its own people, to promote its own strategic interests. This is not new to the US. And those who feel that the US is above that, they should think again, because this is something for which they are quite famous. And this is nothing that Trump himself invented, and so on. I should say all of this. After seeing all of this, the Venezuelan authorities seem to have given an update on this statement, but I myself have not seen the update. Up to tonight, I saw a minister, I can't remember his name, from Venezuela, saying some very uncomplimentary words about our prime minister. I should say nothing that has not been said by people of the island of Trinidad, well, of the country of Trinidad and Tobago. So these are the events that have occurred, and I should mention that given what is going on now, fisher folk from Trinidad and Tobago, especially those who ply their trade close to the Venezuelan border, and even those who want to enjoy sailing in the Gulf and so on, they are very, very afraid. So would I be to venture out to sea for fear of becoming further, I said collateral damage, but this is not just, this is deliberate damage in this US vendetta against Venezuela. I should say that their fears are well-founded, and they have to thank nobody else but their own, in whole or in part, their own government. This is a very, very worrisome development, something to which I am not accustomed at all over my years of living in Trinidad. I have never seen such an open embrace of aggression against any, even in the case of Grenada, and I want to remind people of this, people met, I think it was in Barbados, and they summoned U.S. troops, and Trinidad stood out by not taking part in the Trinidad and Guyana did not take part in this exercise, which I think is a very correct thing. And at this point in time, we are seeing the opposite. We are the only country in the region. I think I heard something about the Dominican Republic and Guyana as well. I should say, who seem to be encouraging this thing. I heard Agence Presse News, and they mentioned Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana. And that is that means my country's name is being called as part of complicity in American activity in the region. I must say, you probably would gather from my tone and so on that I am not at all pleased. I find it a dangerous precedent, and I don't think we should, or any of us, be pleased about it. All right, I, in a way, have finished because I want to move on. So I have a conclusion here, and I'm really saying this, it's really in lieu of a conclusion. I want to emphasize and re-emphasize the contempt that the Trump administration has for the rule of law, and up to today, there's evidence of it. The Secretary of State, who is his little lapdog, who responds and who is carrying out and spearheading the activity in the region. This is what he says when addressed by the UN's concern. He said, I don't care what the UN says. The UN doesn't know what they are talking about. He does, but the UN does not know what they are talking about. And he stresses, Maduro is an indicted drug trafficker in the United States, and he is a fugitive of American justice. So the United States of America lays down the law, and just like its compadre Israel, it seems to feel that it is above the law and is getting away with it. Only today I saw it last night, but I saw it written today. And my dear old friend, Professor Anthony Bryan, whom I hope some of you from you will remember, he was head of the Institute of International Relations for some time. And he summed it up quite well. And he said, in reference clearly to somebody that we know well, it's all right to be friends with President Trump. I am not even sure if that's true, but let's take that on face value. It's all right to be friends with President Trump, but you don't have to become an incarnation of President Trump. I want to add to that you don't have to become his footstool either. Thank you very much, Vanas. I think I finished here, and I'm waiting. I hope to get your questions.
Right. Thanks very much, PK. That's been quite comprehensive as a statement of your stance on the matter and your assessment of what the Americans are really up to in the region. And the way we'll proceed from here is that we would give those, first of all, if you want to come on, just put up your hand. There's a device on your equipment that allows you to put up your hand, and we would give you a chance to come in. And we already have a hand. Let me set a ground rule so that we could give everybody a chance. I think we have near 98 people on the platform, and let's set no more than 2 minutes for the commentary and the questions combined. So Karen, go ahead, start the ball rolling.
I think her mic, she has to unmute her mic.
Unmute your mic, Karen.
Sorry, good evening, everyone. This is not the first administration that has indicated support for President Trump and the American people. My understanding is that there was an agreement signed last year by Dr. Rowley that also gave them the same privileges to utilize Trinidad and Tobago soil to deal with whatever they were dealing with in the Caribbean. So it's not the first time, but my question is, What do we expect to see in Trinidad and Tobago when there's a war going on between America and Venezuela, and America is on our soil? What are the implications for us, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago?
Karen,
Patrick?
let me respond to that. Yes, you are perfectly correct. The sacrosanctimonious statements coming out of the PNM on this matter are a little bit worrisome, because they did indeed sign the SOFA.
Yes.
I forget what SOFA means. And it allows for US troops. But you see, what has happened here, this regime has gone a little bit further, because there was no talk here of implementing SOFA. This was an open invitation without anything, that if there is any attack on Ghana, and as I said, that is a smoke screen. I don't think that is anything that was not in the play at all. So yes, you are perfectly correct. The PNM administration has been party to that sellout of sovereignty. I am not in any way exonerating them from this, but they are not in office now. And the ones in office have to take responsibility for what is happening here. I don't know what will happen if the US is present on our soil. We become a natural target. Already you have seen a Venezuelan minister saying some very uncomplimentary words about our prime minister. Now, we are naturally a friendly people with one another. All right, we have, I remember Manning saying once, when people was telling him about Maduro, he said, and I think that was a correct statement, he said, when he picks up the phone and he calls Caracas, he's speaking to whoever answers. And that is how it should be. We don't decide who is inside of there. So if by some chance Guaido had answered, Manning was going to speak to him. I think that is a correct position. So, but to the extent that we allow bellicose troops, that fighting troops on our soil, we are a natural target for all kinds of things. If you have agreed to encamp forces here that are involved in a military adventure against Venezuela, you become a target because the troops are a target, and we don't want that. So what we should have done, and what all the experts have been telling them, and this would have required a lot of diplomacy, but there was too much of a willingness, from my point of view, to just throw yourself, I'm tempted to use sexual terms here, to throw yourself into the arms of the Americans. In fact, when Sobers, I think it was Sobers who spoke, the Minister of CARICOM Affairs, he said something like, we are neutral in this. That's the first thing. And then hardly had he spoken that the Prime Minister intervened and said, that ain't true. She didn't use those words. We welcome the Americans. And then she mentioned this thing about Guyana. The part that Sobers was taking, which, I mean, he was talking, I mean, I have heard criticisms of what he said, and I'm prepared to accept those criticisms. But it was a decent, let me put it this way, it may have been foolish from the point of view of legal terms and so on, but it was the part that we should not be taking part on this. And I saw an article by Danishwa Mahabir that, this phone is ringing and it shouldn't be. Yes, I saw the thing by Danishwa Mahabir, a former colleague of mine, where he's saying we must not be part of this activity at all. And I think many people are supporting that position. That's the position of Professor Bryan, that's the position of others. And that is what we should be supporting. I think I've said enough on that matter, Karen.
Okay, John Braffett, go ahead and let's hear what you have to say.
Professor. We are likely to become collateral damage.
We're more than that, because we are activating, we are participating in the damn thing. Okay.
Go ahead, John.
I don't think John may have muted his
John,
mic yet.
you were on mute. All right, while we wait on John to get his marbles in order, Clyde, go right ahead.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Dr. Watson, I know you from your presentation you analyze a lot of stuff in terms of between the US and Venezuela and us. There's two issues outside of that I think we need to be aware of. That part of this is the extent to which there are other world powers involved in the situation in Venezuela and in the region. And one of those powers is one we have a lot of economic relationship with, which is China. And the other thing is that with respect to this matter, first of all, this SOFA issue, it was a renewal of the SOFA agreement last December by the PNM. The SOFA was first signed by the PNM under Manning in about 2003 or 4, somewhere thereabouts. But it was renewed under the PP government by Kamla Persad-Bissessar. So it can't be one or the other. They both supported that position over the years. The other thing is that with respect to the Prime Minister's utterances, I looked at the post-cab conference today, and the Minister of Homeland Security was asked about what is the government's attitude to this Venezuelan minister. In fact, he didn't use the words, but I will use it. He said Kamala is drunk, right? Which is the normal PNM nonsense. But his response was, well, I will call him a madman. Now, this is a minister of government. If a reporter asks you what you think about some stupid comment coming from a foreign minister, why are you responding? Why are you not saying our government is not responding to that? That is a provocation, full stop. Then we have the Prime Minister in her second statement, or in the statement, in fact, when she hailed the US for bombing this boat, for destroying it, she went on to say, she invoked God. God bless the American forces and so on in her statement. As I told a friend who lives in the US yesterday, not even Americans that say God bless America and American military in that way. Right now, the Americans are fighting the military being imposed on their communities by Trump. So the question of this bombing of this boat, there's an interesting article in the Jamaican Gleaner, on the Jamaican newspapers, that just about Independence Day, the US Coast Guard, which is part of the US military, together with the Jamaican Coast Guard, interdicted several ships and seized drugs, tons of which were offloaded in Miami by the US Coast Guard. So are we living in two Caribbeans or one? So the US has sent a huge armada south, but has a different way of dealing with drug trafficking around Jamaica, etc. So that to me also points to the real fact that there's something more in the mortar than the pestle when they speak about bringing this armada towards Venezuela. It is very dangerous what the Prime Minister said, because we've had several ministers and the Commissioner of Police who actually issued a statement supporting the bombing of the boat. And we've had these statements from the Minister of Homeland Security and others suggesting that it is okay if you are a criminal or a suspected criminal, that you should be killed by the military of the US or by our police forces and so on. And that is a very dangerous development in this country. So I think we need, it is not just the possibility that we will be a target for Venezuela if the US is in conflict with Venezuela and they bring troops here, but we are facing a trampling on our right to due process as citizens and the possibility of expanding extrajudicial killings in our country that should not be the case at all.
Thank you
Patrick,
very
you want to
much.
respond quickly
No,
to
no,
that?
no. I endorse what Clyde said. I'm not going to go there. I'm happy for that
Okay.
intervention, in fact, because it adds to what I've been saying, and I have no problem with what he has said at all.
John,
Yeah, good night, everybody. You're hearing me now?
Karen,
Yes,
take down your
yes.
hand in the meantime. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Okay, so Professor Watson, thanks for that brilliant and eloquent discussion there concerning the situation with regards to the U.S. Navy's movements and America's position itself in the Caribbean. But what I would like to say though is if one goes to the actual status of forces agreement, at least what is in the public domain, you would recognize a very limited kind of, at least how it is framed, is a very sort of limited kind of agreement, restricting basically to how would the U.S. military personnel operate in Trinidad and Tobago's jurisdiction. It doesn't speak to a large deployment on Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of in opposition to another country. It doesn't really speak to that. However, I mean, like I said, I didn't read it in detail, but that's not to say that it is possible that it could be extended to some situation like that. But generally, the spirit of the agreement is more to do with U.S. military operating in our jurisdiction, right? So that's what I want to talk about this so far. The second thing is, when you look at the composition of the naval armada, it's not representative of an invasion force because the Venezuelan military somewhere like 130,000 if you include the Navy, Guardia Nacional, and the Army, right? So to invade Venezuela, you're really going to need upwards of 100,000 uh, uh, military personnel to do something like that. It's a very limited marine contingent, but when you look at the firepower in terms of naval assets, it looks as though that they will be able to make strategic precision strikes on Venezuelan air defense, Venezuelan communication, logistics, that kind of thing. So you have to ask yourself, why would they want to do something like that? One of the objectives could possibly be somewhat to establish beachheads on some of the Venezuelan islands, the north of Venezuela. That is a possibility, right? And then you have to ask yourself the reason why they would do that. I mean, everybody should be kind of more or less of the opinion that it has nothing to do with narco trafficking. It could be one, to preempt some intelligence that they got with regard to Venezuela moving in Essequibo. That could be a possible reason. Two, a couple of weeks ago, Chevron resumed their oil exports from Venezuela to the United States of America. So there's a kind of strange situation. And then there's also a court battle over Citgo's assets in the US. So PetroVesa has owned something like 40 billion US assets on mainland United States of America. And the judge is just about to give a decision on that. So there could be a lot of different reasons why we see in this buildup of naval presence in the Southern Caribbean, so the SOCOM deployment. So it has nothing to do with narco trafficking. With regards to regime change, what could possibly happen? There may be a coup in the making, and the naval armada could be there to protect the uh, the uh, the
Which is,
yes, to protect the people who are making the attempted the coup. Sorry, yeah. So those are some. Just wanted to introduce some of those
let me
ideas.
let me
Yeah.
let me take you up because I have seen the military explanation that is not an invasion force, but you see the precision strikes that you talked about, those are very real things. The US can take strikes at Venezuelan targets from way out of Venezuelan waters, as you see. I have no idea where that missile was fired from, or the drone that was used to blow the boat out of the water. I'm assuming that it happened, notwithstanding the Venezuelan assertion that this is AI generated and so on. And if it indeed it has happened, that gives you an indication of the firepower of the US. There's a nuclear submarine present there as well. Now, I don't know. That means there's a nuclear warhead. Doesn't that's what it means inside of it?
No. Nuclear armed is different from nuclear powered. So it would have a nuclear reactor that would be the energy source to move the submarine
All right. Okay.
above and below water, but it will be most likely armed with Tomahawk missiles, which would have conventional warheads.
All right. Okay. Thanks for that explanation. But that's fundamental. And the SOFA, yes, I understand that the SOFA is of limited, and that's why I'm saying that what our current Prime Minister has done has gone beyond the SOFA, and it's not an application of the SOFA. This is something that is telling you, you are free to come and use my territory for your nefarious purposes. And that to me is a frightening thing. It's something I've never seen in my life here. You see?
Asha,
Thank you,
Yeah,
John.
just to quickly just add to that. So in order for the US to protect us, it would mean that they would have to establish a significant military presence. They cannot protect us from Venezuela and F-16s and artillery. It's just not going to work unless they're here physically.
thanks a lot, John. Asha, what do you have?
Hi, good night, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, Sasha.
Hi. So
Mhm.
my concern really has to do, I came in a bit late, but my concern has to do with our relationships with other countries, just like China and Russia. I mean, we have done so much business with China over the years. We have integrated them in so many of our core systems. Our technology infrastructure in Trinidad and Tobago is actually, China made. I know our SSA runs on the backdrop of Huawei technologies and all these different things. So my concern really is, what about those relationships, and how does this situation impact those other relationships who may not have alliance with the US, but also have alliance with Venezuela, but in addition to that, has such a big grounding, I mean, by way of all the investments in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, our Pitch Lake, the investments by way of our new forensic science center that's supposed to be fully Chinese funded. How does all of that, I'm talking about the economic viability now of this decision by our government, how is this going to affect those other relationships? The UN pulling out of certain parts of the UN pulling out of Trinidad and Tobago. And in addition to that, I think having heard all that I've heard, my real question is there any way, because I did see Maduro earlier on this week telling the US that, he is still open to talk about this situation. So is there any way that we can actually turn this around? Is there any way, any advice that can be given to salvage this situation, to come back to the space of neutrality? I mean, because we are actually putting our CARICOM sisters and brothers in severe harm's way. So, I mean, that was my comment, and that is my question.
Let me say, I am not sure I have the expertise to respond to those concerns, but they are real concerns. I don't think, and based on everything I've seen so far, and based on how the Chinese operate, that our Prime Minister's position towards Venezuela will change what the Chinese they wouldn't care about that. They will continue having friendly relations with us as they have always done. China is a friendly nation, and they work with us. The fact that China may intervene on Venezuela's side, which is a very rare possibility, not necessarily in sending troops and so on, but they can send all kinds of support. And I think that they have been doing that. And China and Russia have been welcoming Maduro as a potential member of the BRICS family. What I'm not sure, was there any Venezuelan presence in the big Chinese event that took place this week? I'm not familiar. I'm not sure if that happened or if they were too concerned about what was going on at home. But I do have, and I have seen photos of Maduro with Xi Jinping and with Putin. I'm not sure if this was related to the events in China, but I don't think that Trinidad and Tobago's relations with China, we hardly have any relations with Russia, but we do have, as you quite rightly point out, a lot of relations with China. I can't see anything going wrong to solve that unless, and this is the frightening thing, unless because the US has a problem with China, and I am worried, I am very worried that this kind of stance that the Trinidad and Tobago government has taken towards the US, are they prepared to go along with everything that the US is fighting? I think in particular, you're worried about China, I'm worried about Palestine. We are a vote is coming up in the UN in a few days' time, I think, and I am very concerned about how the Trinidad and Tobago government is going to vote or not vote, because as far as I'm concerned, anything but a vote in favor of Palestine, this is nothing. This is not a big thing, but it is something. And if you can't put your heads down and say you recognize a Palestinian state, that will be a very, very sad day for Trinidad and Tobago. We have always taken positions on the side of Cuba, on the side of Palestine. Will we see an end to that? And it's from that point of view, if I'm speculating, if the US should require that we start dealing with China in a particular way, we have a policy, for instance, towards Taiwan. We recognize China and not Taiwan. We don't do that. I don't know to what extent that will be placed in jeopardy. But I think the way I want to look at this is how far is our Prime Minister prepared to go to put us in the ambit of the US and to make us a US outpost in the Caribbean. That is frightening. And that is, if that goes any further, it is there we will see the consequences for our relations with third parties like China, Russia, not a big one yet, all right, and so on. That's the way. I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything on that, but that's how I see it. I am not the expert in that.
Does that mean, Patrick, just a quick question before I ask Akil, does that mean that the matter of the question she asked you about turning around the damage being done by
I can't see how we could take our hands out of that lion mouth. We have put our hands too far down in the throat of that lion. And this just has to run its natural course. And we have to hope that in the end, this is how I am seeing it happening, that Kamala Persad-Bissessar, the kiss and make up, I'm talking about with Venezuela and the CARICOM countries. And I can't see why that should be so hard to do. I don't think all is lost. But at the moment, there is a lot of bad blood developing, and that is a frightening thing. And I don't know how we can, at this juncture, turn this thing around, because we have already given a promise for the use of our territory. We have already made all kinds of assertions about Venezuela. We have irritated the Venezuelan authorities with our kill them all and kill them all violently and so on. This is going to take some healing, and I am not sure in the short run how that is going to be done. But we have years of friendly relations with the countries around us. I don't think the activity of someone like the current Prime Minister should endanger that.
Juliet, you still want to come in, as you were in earlier and you took down your hand? Are you still interested?
Hi, Dr. Vanna, and good evening to everyone. Are you hearing me?
Yes, go ahead.
So my question is more so about our protection of the borders in the sense that with all that is going on, when you look at historically at the countries that have allowed the US to come in, whether it be for so-called protection or just to use their space for whatever wars or whatever they're doing, they've always been left basically in shambles. That's historically proven. Where we are currently, we don't have proper border protection. We don't have anything that actually protects our land because we've always been friendly, as we pointed out, with everyone around us. Is it more sensible, and that's just me using the word sensible loosely, for the current administration to pay attention to what's going on within the land and protect our borders than to side with what's going on with the Americans? I'm just asking.
I think that the answer to that question, I mean, it's a logical flow from what I would have been saying. I see no connection between what the Americans are doing outside there and what is going to happen inside Trinidad and Tobago. I see none whatsoever. To the extent that there's some temporary ease up in the flow of drugs, that may be so. Venezuela is not a drug producing country, but it is a transshipment point, and that we must not deny that. Drugs are created and moved about from Mexico and Colombia, and they do pass through Venezuela. And yes, I agree fully that we should concentrate ourselves on the protection of our borders, and we cannot depend on other people to do it for us because our borders are very, very porous. And this has a lot to do, and Mr. Alexander should bear that in mind, rather than sitting down there and responding with a tit for tat with the Venezuela, as Clyde pointed out, that he has problems of corruption in the administration of what do we call it, police protection, including in the prison service. And they are not dealing with that. And I don't know how they expect what miracle should happen outside for them to deal with that. That's a cop-out, it's a smoke screen to say that we would get greater protection based on that.
You wrap up there, Patrick.
Go ahead, you go ahead.
Akil, you are a man that is normally invited to wrap up the conversation. You're coming in very early.
No, I'll take it after. Thank you. I'll take it after.
Yeah, because we normally want you to do the wrap-up commentary and question. John, you wanted to come back in quickly?
Yeah, so
you use up your 2 minutes already, you know.
I know. Let me just be quick. So I know Professor Watson was speaking a lot about what the sentiment and the rhetoric coming from the Prime Minister, but we must consider that she could be speaking on her personal opinion. It might not be the opinion of the entire cabinet. I just wanted to say that.
John, let me say something. The Prime Minister is, when the time comes, is the cabinet, the voice of the cabinet. Nobody could speak on behalf of the cabinet like the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister, as Prime Minister, does not have personal opinion. She is the head of the government. Her words are serious and to be taken seriously by everybody dealing with the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Her personal opinion.
But Foreign Affairs Minister was saying something else.
She put him down. I mean, what? And if I hear Soba say something and I hear the Prime Minister say the opposite, I stop listening to Soba's a long time because the Prime Minister prevails. She is the head. She could fire Soba, sir. Soba can't fire her. You understand? Okay. It's as simple as that. Okay, Vanna, sorry.
Right, come on in.
Vanna, just in terms of the sister's question there.
Yes.
At the postcard today, a reporter asked a very similar question. And the Minister of Defense, my legal colleague, his response was, what the Americans doing is in international waters and they are protecting themselves. It have nothing to do with us. And he said the military in Trinidad and Tobago is not on any high alert or anything because that have nothing to do with what's happening here. So it coming from the government, it is pretending that what the Americans are doing will solve our crime problem, and we don't have to solve our problem. They will solve it for us by dealing with Venezuela or whoever they claim to be dealing with. It's a very dangerous kind of position that they are presenting.
Okay. PK, you want to come back in on that quick?
No, I agree with that. I actually
with
agree with
Clyde.
what and I agree with what John says as well. It's just that I added an addendum to what John said.
The
I
president
think
in the commission.
I'm not sure. I think a WH is trying to intervene. I'm hearing his
WHO want
voice.
to come in?
If not, he should mute his mic here because I'm
Oh
hearing
yeah,
him.
all right, yeah. Well, he mute now. Asha, quickly, you run out your 2 minutes already, and so did you, Juliet.
Okay, I'm so sorry, but I just want to say also that, you know, when the government says one thing, that's on the public platform. And I'm talking now through the cabinet. That's one thing where they have diplomacy. But when you use the social media forums by way of the live posts, like for instance, I've listened to Anna Roberts, or they send it via WhatsApp. To me, I feel as though sometimes it may be seen as inciting, you know, this kind of aggressive behavior. And so in my mind, when you have the foreign entity or the government agency stating one thing, and then on the sideline politically, there is that banter, I think it puts us at more risk. And so therefore, I don't know if there's any way that, you know, maybe some public relations skills, some kind of, because I mean, it's one thing I heard people say it's okay to take a side. Okay, I understand so, but at least take a side diplomatically and with one voice. So I just wanted to say that now because it really is worrisome understanding our not only the economic circumstances, but for me as well, our criminality, and understanding that for years last year we were conditioned to believe that Venezuelan gangs have come across here and overtaken our local gangs. So is it that, you know, we have a situation where there is an uprising even here in Trinidad and Tobago when we incite such activities and such voices? So I just wanted to put that out there as it relates to criminality as well.
PK, I think Asha is bent on inviting you to advise the government on how to clean up its act.
No, I have been doing it. It's just that they don't listen. I have never seen hubris take over a government so fast. That is the reality. And they are not. They are just not listening. They have their own. I mean, this is not a secret. I supported them in the elections. I had arguments with Clyde on that matter, and I went out and I stuck my finger for the UNC. I must say, I was very much. I remember speaking to someone of them who asked me to come on the platform, and I told him that my greatest concern is their attitude towards the United States of America and to the Trump administration. And that thing has come to hit me almost immediately. You know, it's when I supported them, you know, as Lenin used to say, I support this regime as I support you support a hangman. And immediately I hardly got up from after sticking my finger, and there it is, we out supporting of an administration that is aggressive, that knows no bounds in seeking its own agenda and so on. And I mean, if I go back to what Asha is saying, I have no doubt that we have to deal with our own criminal. No, but the US is not going to do it for us. We have our own internal issues here, and we have to deal with it. A lot of the issues we have internally have to do with corruption in the services, corruption in the prisons, corruption in the police. in the police service, and so on. So this is not something that we are going to be able to handle because of somebody outside. They come there for a few weeks and then they go back. It's not going to happen.
You know, PK, when we set up our sessions, we normally have a couple of people we invite to speak on the issues, just to add commentary. And I want to invite one of them now. Lloyd Taylor, I see you here. What do you make of PK's presentation? And in particular, what is the advice you would provide to the government on how to turn this mess around?
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Patrick, for your presentation. I think it was very useful, especially the background. We've been speculating a lot about what is behind all these things and what Kamala is doing. And somebody asked if we can find the diplomacy to make a difference or turn our fortunes around. My own view is that our Prime Minister has made a Faustian bargain. And there is no way we're going to get out of that. It will just get worse.
Explain that. Explain the Faustian bargain. I like that. Very classical.
She has been in the run-up to the campaign, before the campaign was announced, she has been emphasizing certain tough approaches to crime, and that includes, in my estimate, the stand your ground, which whatever support it gets from the population is going to increase the number of guns in a ratio of 1 to 3 persons in the streets. If we take account of the fact that we have between 420 to 450 households, there's also going to be discrimination because people in Bangladesh and people in Bitam Estate, they're not going to get firearms user license to deal with the chance of home invasions in their own homes because of their community. That's one. Immediately she got into office, the declaration of the state of emergency to deal with 11 so-called criminals don't make any sense to me. It's either the police service is not working or the army is not working. 10 individuals, in my view, that you have to move from state prison into Teteran suggests something else. And that, in my judgment, is a cover. The state of emergency is a cover for certain kinds of decisions made by the government in secret with the American State Department and the CIA to prevent protests on the streets while this is going on. I think this thing with Venezuela has always been, well, has been in the pipeline for long, and they just used the right time to start it. And she has, as an attorney, she has abandoned all legal principles, primarily the issue of you're innocent until proven guilty. So Maduro is guilty. The people in the boat, so-called, that have been shut out of the water are guilty. She has gone on the other side of the fence. And in my judgment, she got assistance. I will not be surprised that she got assistance from the Americans for this campaign. I can prove that. That's a political judgment I'm making. There is therefore, in my judgment, no way we could reverse those fortunes without moving the government from office. The point you made, Patrick, about the Prime Minister not having any personal opinion needs to be taken seriously, because it reinforces the fact that Parliament, as Parliament, has no capacity, no prevailing capacity to deal with the government in office. The Parliament we have is really a puppy show, unless we decide to reform it. So we have not changed from the days of Eric Williamson now. What we have is the voice of one. The possible exception to that, as Clyde pointed out, I think last week, is George Chambers. Everybody else behaved the same way. The other thing I think we need to speculate on is the support for Guyana as grounds for inviting the Americans to use our assets. I think there is an ethnic dimension there that we can't ignore, that we have to pay attention to. And bear in mind at the same time that the Guyanese elections supposed to have been taking place, I think sometime this week. I'm not so sure what the results.
The results are out. The party has
yeah.
been returned to power.
That's right.
Ephraim is again president. Okay. And the old Burnham party seems to be dead, eh? That's what I said. Anyway, that's another matter.
I think I don't know how we have to change the government, and we have to put a new alternative in place. We have been going progressively down the hill from the early days of Williams to now, and we've seen how when you make one small error, right, it snowballs and gets big. So over 60 years now, we now face a country with administrations that are prepared to make any compromise that undermines the sovereignty of the country. We already do not have a coercive capacity to sustain that sovereignty. Our only option is diplomacy and joining forces with the rest of the Caribbean states, CARICOM in particular, to make one voice. Outside of that, we are down the hill. And we had better start putting an alternative in place to deal with the outcomes that we're going to face. We're going to get more of the Americans, and I don't think it's naivety. I don't think it's naivety. They must know what Trump is about. Trump is about whatever assets in the rest of the world he'll get. And he's likely to do in the Caribbean what he did in Syria. He left 1,000 troops in Syria to guard the oil among the Kurds. And they stole that oil. The reason why Assad fell is because the Assad government had no revenues to run the country and to feed their army. I think Trump is eyeing the executive because there's a massive vacuum there. Yes. And if he lands troops there, it'd be very difficult to move him. And I think that's the way we have to think about it.
PK?
I want to thank Taylor for that, because I agree with it. There's nothing really I want to add to that we have been progressively heading towards this, and that is true. Over the years we have been doing it. And the one main thing I think he said there, if anything that has come out of Guyana's elections is that the old Burnham party seems to have gone through. I don't know if what is replacing it is good, but I don't know that new formation at all. But there has to be alternatives to these two parties who more or less give us the same fare over and over. In fact, when you hear one of them justifying what they're doing, they'll tell you what the PNM do it. You know, I keep hearing that kind of thing. And they say all kinds of things that are lies sometimes. Why you didn't talk when the PNM was doing? But we talk, all right? We vote them out, all right? So what is this you're telling me about? But you come back and you're doing exactly, you know. I always say this is the PNM DLP from all time. Right? There's no difference. This thing has gone all the way down the line like that. And what we have is DLP part 4, part 5, or whatever it is. And they got their training from the PNM. That is it. We have to deal with that. Sorry about that. Right. Yeah.
All the parties are really one party.
Yes.
Okay. Listen, I'm seeing David one from Jamaica, and there's a CARICOM side to this conversation. David, what do you have in mind here? Can you help the conversation along? What do you make of what Patrick was saying anyway?
Evening, everybody. Just trying to unmute. This is a brand new topic for me. There are just a few thoughts that come to mind. I wanted to ask the economic backdrop of what's going on in Trinidad. Could that have some impact on the actions that the Prime Minister has taken? Specifically, it is my understanding that the Trinidad economy, especially in the level of reserves, has been depleted significantly because of the foreign exchange issues in Trinidad. So could there be some economic backdrop to all this, or is that just a completely separate topic?
That's a good question, Patrick.
Yeah,
that's a good question for you.
Yeah, it's not totally irrelevant. And in fact, it's not irrelevant at all. To the America, the U.S. is, like it is with Jamaica, is our greatest trading partner. We sell a lot of things to them, and the oil that we have, it's largely an American company with a British name that is running the show here. That has always been the case. We are not doing very well. And when you said reserves in the first instance, I thought you were talking about our hydrocarbon reserves, huh? And so,
no, monetary reserves.
I know, I understand that, yes, and you're correct. We have a depleting foreign exchange asset. It's that it's just disappearing. And up to today, there seems to have been a problem between the newly appointed governor of the central bank, Larry Hawaii, who disagreed with Kamala that there's a foreign exchange cartel. Everybody seems to think that, and he said, no, that is not true. That the central bank seems to be giving most of the money to a handful of well-identified, well-chosen people. The country is in a mess, and it's getting messier because over the years, we have not diversified the economy away from the hydrocarbon sector. So every government that comes into office, they try to and there's nothing, again, there's nothing wrong in using our hydrocarbon resources. Nothing wrong. That's what we have to do because we have it. Where the danger arises, as was happening under the previous administration, is when they put all the eggs in the one hydrocarbon basket and they forget everything about diversifying the economy. We always talk about diversification. I've been hearing the word since I was a schoolboy, but nothing has ever really been done concretely to move us away from the hydrocarbon sector. So yes, what is happening? We are producing less and less oil, even less and less gas, and the price of oil was favorable recently and still is relatively favorable, but all falling away. And even if it becomes favorable, we are not producing sufficient quantities of both oil and gas to take advantage of it. So we are in a mess. And yes, dealing with the United States of America is important because we are dealing with our largest trading partner. They buy most of our goods and services. Our tourism, if it does exist, there are a lot of Americans in the mix. A lot of our people live in the United States of America. I have family, I have grandchildren living in the United States of America. So there is a connection there that that goes way beyond the ordinary. So we have to deal with the United States of America, independently of who's in charge, whether it's Trump or Biden or Kamala or whatever her name is, and so on. So there is an economic issue involved there that perhaps Kamala is that's our Kamala, not the U.S. Kamala, that she's seeing that we have to kowtow, to put it that way, to this mighty military and economic power who can impose tariffs on you. I mean, the Trump administration I don't think they have any friends. Had the case of Modi, who was their darling until recently, and then they imposed these massive tariffs on India, which caused Modi to move almost immediately into the arms of his BRICS partners. So playing with the devil in that way is not going to help us at all. We have to diversify the economy. We have to seek markets that are different from the United States of America, and that may involve getting products that are different from oil and gas. That's fundamentally what I want to say.
I just want to quickly say, with a light-hearted comment, maybe Prime Minister could learn a few things from all the other heads of state that went to Trump. The best way to get on his good side is nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize, something like that. You know? And then you'll get what you want.
By the way, I taught your Prime Minister. Your Prime Minister is a graduate of the SALISIS, the Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies.
Oh, in Jamaica or in Trinidad?
Yes, in Jamaica. We had there was a common master's program that we had, and he was part of it. And when I say I taught him, I don't think he did my course, but he was part of the group that was doing the course. So I would have crossed him before he became Prime Minister.
He just got reelected last night.
Yes, I saw that. I saw that. Yes.
Yeah.
Patrick, let me ask you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead, David.
One more quick one. I don't want this to divert too much away from the central topic. But I think, in terms of all that you mentioned, Professor, about the economic issues in Trinidad, I think some lessons can be learned from Jamaica in that we liberalized our foreign exchange market about 20 odd years ago. Yes. And everyone was afraid that, all kind of hell would break loose, but it has been a real blessing, I must tell you. There's some initial pain, but it has really helped.
There was a lot of initial pain. I mean, I followed it. There was a lot of initial pain. I remember when I first went to Jamaica in the early 80s, the ratio was 6-1. By the time the liberalization started, it was 13-1, and then it went almost immediately to close to 50 or 60-1.
That's correct.
Very short.
It's now 150 something.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, about 160, about 160 right now. So anyway, I thank you very much, sir.
Oh, pleasure.
Okay, Patrick, I have a question for you because of the rubric under which you developed the presentation. You identified the notion that there will be some costs to the missteps of the government, and you specified really two, if I can glean them from the commentary. One has to do with the fear that the fisher folk will now have of becoming collateral damage, that well-founded fear, as you identified that, and then the danger of the contempt for the rule of law, that and contempt for the UN Charter that you identified as a second cost. Are those the costs you anticipated in the title of the presentation, or you have others?
This is not. I wanted to make, and Clyde developed the thing very cogently about the rule of law and the dangers that it involved, because he took it to the domestic level as well. Because what is happening outside, the killing of people willy-nilly like that, it's something that we can easily, and Alexander raised that the other day when he talked about sending someone to the cemetery. I don't know if you remember that. I think they should start putting a muzzle on that man's mouth. Every time he speaks, I get worried. Anyway, the point is that we must, the costs are, sometimes it can be a bit esoteric. One of the costs is the return of the Yankees. When we put it that way. You're talking about going back to the Gina and Dinah days. And that is the worrisome thing that I find the most, that we are in the process of becoming an American outpost. And that is not something that I find desirable at all. In fact, I ended by stressing that one, that we must not become the footstool of the United States of America.
That's the risk. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's 9 p.m. Akil, it's your turn. We're close to wrap up time. Let's give you a chance to pose your wrap up question to Patrick. You usually ask the question, what is the way forward? Let me not anticipate you though. Go ahead. You're on mute still if you're trying to talk. Go ahead.
No, I'm not on mute. Can you
Go
see
ahead,
me?
Akil. Mm-hmm.
Am I visible?
I am seeing you.
Yes, we're seeing you.
All right, wonderful. Dr. Watson, you and Larry Hawaii came men who slaughter animals in the abattoir. After listening to Larry Hawaii their presentation, after listening to you tonight, all I am hearing is squeal, little squeal. They're just waiting to slaughter us. It may seem as though that they love us. They may feed us. They may give us a bath. They may pat us on our head. But slowly but surely, the economy of Trinidad and Tobago is going down. Eventually, it is the average citizen of this beloved country that would feel the knife coming our, and I dare say, cutting our necks. Earlier on, you mentioned a meeting, and you couldn't quite put your finger on the name of the meeting. Meeting you were referring to the XO Summit. I was held in a couple of days ago. And listening to presentations from
you keep
those
breaking up, Yeah, well, go ahead. I'm trying to.
Yeah,
you keep breaking up. I'm not hearing you.
Yeah. You're breaking up, Akil.
Okay, are you hearing me better now?
But go ahead. Go ahead.
Are you hearing me much better now?
I am hearing you now. Yeah.
Right. Also, listening to the presentations of those leads at summit, I too am saying that they too are in a slaughterhouse ready to give the Western economies, Western trades, a good knife cut and neck. Now, I wouldn't go into too much details because I only have about 2 minutes. I'll give me 10 seconds after. But Barry, there was a saying attributed to Hitler, but some years ago doing some search, I really didn't see that it was attributed to Hitler. But the saying is as follows: if you speak a lie long enough, eventually it will become truth. Let me say that again. If you speak a lie long enough, eventually it will become true. And that forms part of military warfare. Also, deception is a fundamental exercise deployed and used in military warfare. Now, where am I going with all of this? When this boat fiasco happened, there was a lot of virality going on with the clip. I mean, it went viral. The entire world saw it. But we did something because we understand how the internet operates. The internet doesn't operate on video and the pictures that you see. It operates on code. And anything that you see on the internet, you can peel back the layer, see what it was built on, and even trace it. So what I did, for many years now, I on the dark web. A lot of people don't know, or you don't even have access to the dark web. It's a part of the internet that a lot of the world does not have access to. But a lot of technical things go on in the dark web. And what some of those ethical hackers did while we were in that forum, they peeled back the layer, they examined the code, and what they would have determined was what Venezuela said. That video was built on AI principles. I, as an IT engineer, I am giving my professional opinion from what I saw on the dark web. I am saying that video is a fabricated video. Now you see why I started off by saying what Hitler said about the lie. If you speak it long enough, it will become truth. And what warfare is fundamentally built on, it's built on deception. Now, why all of this? That is a question that needs to ask tonight. Why did they do that? I don't have the answer, but I can shoot in the dark and assure wherever that arrow lands, it will hit something. I am saying that all of what was discussed here tonight, even in past sessions, even what I would have heard, what Dr. Vanas would have mentioned, he have been sticking it in our ears for many a times through his presentations. The things that we are seeing, we need to take closer look at them because it is not what the data is saying. Now, where am I going with data? How did Venezuela find out about this? They examined the same data we did. Because I am sure they have their
tighten up there, Akil. Tighten up.
Yeah, I'm sure they have their ethical hackers to examine the same video, peel back the layer, see what is going on so that they can determine for themselves whether if they should fire a shot given the aggression that was meted out to them, or if they should stand down. Dr. James, because it is getting late, I think I would just cut here, but there is a couple things I want to say again, but I will just leave it there.
Yeah, I think PK, if you don't want to respond to that right away, let me ask
No,
George
no,
Stanley.
no.
Yeah, let me ask George Stanley to take it 2 minutes and Alison right after, and then we'll ask Denise to wrap up and thank you and all of that. Go ahead, George.
Good night to everybody. This is a diverse menu that hit me this evening, and it really put me thinking caps more than one on. And being from the little island of Tobago, being part of Trinidad and Tobago, and having lived my full life here in the interest of Tobago and Trinidad, it leads me to wonder, where the hell does Tobago go in all of this? Where and how do we figure ourselves? I mean, to say slavery did it to us. Then the British did it to us in the 1800s. And then the PNM did it to us in 56. And a people on an island, and I have to say, quite an island full of industrious and people who go and function elsewhere in the world and be successful and can't see successes on their little island and have to put up with what we have spoken about tonight. You know, it puts a question mark on for many Tobagoans and tonight on my life for having been patriotic to my little island. I wonder which way is up for Tobago in the future. And half of it comes from the fact that information has not been flowing as it should over the many years here to the Tobagonian. We have been starved. The media has not been kind to us. And when we have tried to improve media to keep our citizens informed, we have not been able. Here it is, so much has been said as to whether or not what we saw or heard was AI generated. And we have lived this. I don't know, it's mind-boggling for me this evening, Vanas. And I must also say, Hurricane Flora, and what did it to us? Mashed us up and left us in smithereens as to where and how we get out of this. I am truly, I've been trying to follow what's happening. Yes, a lot of missteps and utterances which should not have been made have been made. And yes, when we look at the damn TV these days, we see what the boys from Russia have been doing in the Middle East, and we look at the people of the Middle East and how they try to cope. If we were to go and get into something like that, how does, after us, how do we in Tobago, damn it, manage with the fallout? It's been a very interesting program. I must thank Dr. Solomon for his Watson, sorry. Yeah, all the best.
Thank you very much.
Prof Watson, hold your commentary until Alison comes in.
No, I am fine. I am fine. To tell you the truth, I'm starting to. I'm an old man, you know. I ain't young like you.
Yeah. Alison, go ahead quickly because we on a wrap up bout.
Yeah. Patrick, thanks so much. Patrick and I disagree about a lot of things, but I thought this presentation tonight was really quite excellent. And I want to just highlight a few things that he said. Are you not hearing me?
I'm hearing you very well, Alison.
Go ahead.
Right now.
This whole idea of a head of state or government officials endorsing and perhaps even participating in these extrajudiciary killings or endorsing them, right? You know, Patrick is right. It is unlikely that any U.S. official will ever be held accountable, but the same cannot be said for non-U.S. or non-British officials, right? We have seen this time and time again, where folks from various governments have been held accountable, and we see what South Africa has been trying to do with the International Court and the Israeli government. So it's not far out of the realm that something like this can happen. When I hear people also talk about corruption in the police force and the protective services, I think we have to kind of go beyond that. It's not just corruption. It is also the ineffectiveness of the judicial system to be timely, to kind of have people go through the process in a timely way, that undermines the larger kind of democratic exercise that we are attempting to engage in. I was privy to a couple of discussions the other day where they were focused on, they were comparing Trinidad and Suriname and looking at, leading up to the Guyanese election. And some of the stuff that was being discussed is, what form of democracy have we taken serious steps to even reform the type of constitution or the way we do government, right? And I want to say to John, I think, who put in the chat, Trump will be gone in 4 years. It doesn't matter if Trump goes in 4 years. The undermining of these kind of institutions and institutional practices are going to take hold, right? And so that's what I want to say. And just thank you so much. I had a whole lot more, but I, like Patrick, I'm fading fast.
Denise, you're last. You have to thank Patrick, and you have to ask your questions and get his feedback all in one swipe.
So let me say good evening to everyone. And I think my what I would like to focus on is perhaps what Taylor alluded to the fact that at any given time, our leaders could decide what side of the bed they want to get upon and make decisions for everyone, one that may not even include the cabinet just because you're the leader, one that may not even include our parliament because our constitution does not, enforce it. And yes, we have to change the leadership, but at the end of the day, we continue playing what I call back up and catch with the leadership. Yeah. PNM, UNC, PNM, UNC. And I think the real issue that we are not treating with is what Vanis likes to call, when you put angels in there, the Constitution makes devils out of them. And so we have to, once we overcome this, have to focus on changing the Constitution. This is what all of this is pointing to, Imagine, God forbid, if we had missiles. It just takes, our Constitution would allow the Prime Minister just to get up and push a button without talking to anyone else. And therefore, we have to understand and appreciate that whilst we continue to complain about all of them, we have to take responsibility that after 63 years, our Constitution needs to change to bring the people into the framework and to be able to control the executive. My second point goes to what Stanley alluded to, the fact that we are here in Tobago as sitting ducks with a Prime Minister who speaks, for Trinidad and Tobago. At the end of the day, we have a Tobago House of Assembly. And whether they like it or not, we are the country of Trinidad, the island of Trinidad, and the island of Tobago. And therefore, our leaders should not be silent on this issue. They have been totally silent. In fact, we have been the only ones speaking up and saying we are standing on the side of neutrality and peace. Because when we speak to the Tobagonians across the island, that is what they want for Tobago. We don't want to be dragged into some kind of war as collateral damage. And if we are not making the point loudly, then others would just assume that we are colluding with what is happening out throughout with the voice of the Prime Minister. So that is what my comments were. And let me take this opportunity to say thank you, Professor. It was just, I think, 2 days ago that I called and we had a nice chat. And you graciously said, yes, I will do the program. And I am truly appreciative of the time you took tonight to be with us and to truly pour everything up. We felt your passion. We understand your knowledge and your expertise in the area. And we really want to thank you for your generosity in sharing all of that with us this evening. I want to thank all newcomers to the program. I see we maxed out at 100. I have to look at see how we can increase our Zoom business at this time, at the next time. But I want to thank you all because you came, you got the call and you came on board and you all have contributed. This program, TLS, has been going on for the last 4 years, close to 4 years. And this is where we discuss issues just like these. It's not just about Tobago, but everything national and even regional that may impact Tobago. And so I want to thank you for coming on. We are on every Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. So I invite you to come back next week. Dr. Vanis James, I want to thank you. Always there. Thank you for moderating tonight. And always being that force that is there with us. So everyone, thank you so much. I appreciate all the persons who contributed far and wide, including from Jamaica, my second home. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Thanks for inviting me and thanks for being so kind towards me. Okay,
Yeah,
good night, everybody. Yeah,
absolutely.
everybody, have a good night.
PK, you earned your professorship in international relations tonight. Fantastic, fantastic
All right.
work.
Okay, thanks very much, fellas. Have a good evening, eh?
Okay.
Yeah,
Take
thanks.
care.
Bye bye.
All right.